Hello everyone, I'm Houndawg, and today we are flying in another well-known U.S. Army Air Force aircraft that the U.S. Navy modified for carrier operations, the North American Aviation PBJ Mitchell bomber, or better known as the B-25. It is November 15, 1944, and once again we are participating in carrier suitability testing on board the USS Shangri-La CV-38, steaming in the Chesapeake Bay.
Radio check, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, radio check. In early 1942, the United States was determined to retaliate for the December 7, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. On the 18th of April, 16 North American Aviation B-25 Mitchell bombers launched from the USS Hornet CV-8 in the northwestern Pacific Ocean for a one-way air raid on Honshu Island in the capital of Tokyo. After the raid, 15 aircraft crash-landed in China and one landed in Russia, with all but 4 airmen surviving and eventually returning to the United States. Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle, who led the raid, initially believed that the loss of all his aircraft would lead to his court-martial, but instead received the Medal of Honor and was promoted 2 ranks to Brigadier General. While the Doolittle raid was declared successful, it was clearly not a practical option. However, it did demonstrate that large, fully loaded B-25 bombers could easily take off from an aircraft carrier at sea. The U.S. Navy was under great pressure to procure the weapon systems necessary to cover the war efforts in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The Navy's existing carrier-based aircraft had limited range and armament loads necessary to conduct critical long-range maritime anti-shipping patrols. In an effort to fill this void, the Navy reached a mid-1942 agreement with the U.S. Army Air Force to acquire and operate land-based B-25 Mitchell bombers. This agreement transferred B-25s to land-based Marine squadrons and committed a part of new production aircraft to the Navy. The Navy Mitchells would be designated PBJ for Patrol Bomber, North American built, first model. The first PBJs were operational by February 1943, and in March 1944 they began operating from the captured airfields at Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and the Philippines. A total of 706 aircraft were delivered to the Navy and Marines. The PBJ was almost 53 feet long, with a wingspan over 67 feet and a maximum weight of 35,000 pounds. It was powered by 2 1,700 horsepower Wright R2600 14-cylinder radial engines. The PBJ was capable of a top speed of 272 miles per hour with a range of 1,350 miles and a service ceiling of 24,000 feet. It had a crew of 1 pilot in the left seat, 1 cannoneer in the right seat, and 4 gunners. The PBJs were initially finished in the 3-tone color scheme adopted by the U.S. Navy in March 1944. Sea blue on the top, followed by intermediate sea blue with white on the bottom. The PBJ was heavily armed with a total of 14 50 caliber machine guns and an external hardpoint for 1 2,000-pound Mark 13 torpedo, racks for 8 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, and 3,000 pounds of depth charges or bombs. Some later H models had a massive 75mm cannon fitted in the nose. The first Navy Mitchells replaced the ventral gun turret with a retractable radome, but later models had the radar located in the nose or right wingtip. In 1944, the Navy added an SBD dauntless tailhook to an existing PBJ for the purpose of conducting carrier suitability testing to include catapult launches and full arrested landings. On November 15, 1944, 3 aircraft were tested for arrested landings and catapult launches aboard the USS Shangri-La CV-38 while she was still on her initial shakedown cruise in the Chesapeake Bay. Lieutenant Charlie Lane piloted the Grumman F-7F Tiger Cat. Lieutenant Bob Elder was in the North American Aviation P-51 Seahorse, and Lieutenant Commander Sid Bottomley flew the modified North American Aviation PBJ Mitchell. PBJ successfully completed 4 arrested landings and 4 catapult launches. Deck handling was also evaluated with the main wheels capable of being turned sideways to ease the large aircraft into tight spots on the elevator and in the hangar bay. Except for a scary but minor incident with the pilot's seat moving backwards during a catapult launch, no other major problems were encountered. Lieutenant Commander Bottomley later remarked how easy the catapult launches and arrested landings were in the big bomber. However, the Navy felt that the Mitchell was too large for normal operations aboard a carrier, and by late 1944 determined that there was no longer a need for a carrier-based long-range medium bomber and canceled the program. The last PBJ Mitchell was removed from the inventory on 31 January 1946. Since we have flown our last 3 flights from the USS Shangri-La, I think we should review more of the history of this great ship. The USS Shangri-La CV-38 was one of the U.S. Navy's 24 Essex-class aircraft carriers constructed during or immediately after World War II. Her keel was laid down by the Norfolk Navy Yard at Portsmouth, Virginia on 15 January 1943. She was launched on 24 February 1944 and commissioned on 15 September 1944. The naming of the ship was a radical departure from the general practice of the time, which was to name aircraft carriers after historical battles or previous U.S. Navy ships. After the Doolittle raid, successfully launched from the aircraft carrier Hornet, President Roosevelt was questioned by a reporter about where the B-25s had begun their mission. The President answered by saying that the raid had been launched from a secret base in Shangri-La. This was, of course, a reference to the fictional faraway land of the James Hilton novel Lost Horizon. The USS Shangri-La participated in numerous campaigns in the Pacific Theater of Operations during World War II, including the final assaults on the mainland, which earned her the nickname the Tokyo Express. She earned 2 battle stars, but like many of her sister ships, was decommissioned shortly after the end of the war. In the early 1950s, the Shangri-La was modernized with the addition of an angled deck and steam catapults and recommissioned as an attack carrier CVA. She participated in operations in Vietnam where she earned 3 battle stars. She also operated in both the Pacific and Atlantic Mediterranean for several years, and late in her career was redesignated as an anti-submarine carrier CVS. The USS Shangri-La was decommissioned in 1971 and sold for scrap in 1988.